If I close my eyes, I can still hear the sound of wood cracking under the living room floor. The exact moment everything in my life fell apart. I didn't know then that beneath those old floorboards slept a secret capable of tearing my family to pieces. Before I even begin, can I ask you something? Where are you listening to my voice from? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one of them. You know, there's a moment in every mother's life when her whole world changes in a single breath. And if you love honest stories about real families, subscribe and stay with me. Because what I'm about to tell you still keeps me up at night. Just in case my voice touches your heart. My name is Margaret Whitlock, but everyone called me Maggie. I'm 71 now. I've lived long enough to know that betrayal doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes, it grows up at your own dinner table, kisses your son goodnight, and calls you mom, with a smile that never reaches the eyes. I used to think our family was happy. My husband Robert and I raised our only son, Andrew, in a home filled with warmth, or at least I thought so. Maybe I was too trusting. Maybe I believed love alone could hold a family together. Let me take you back. Long before the night the floors gave away our lives. We bought the house in New Haven, Connecticut, a brick cottage with a garden that smelled of lavender every spring. We poured everything into it. Our dreams, our savings, our weekends. Robert used to say, a home remembers the people who love it. And I believed him. Even after he died, I believed him. But there were many things about that house I didn't know, until it was too late. My son married Rebecca 7 years ago. She was stunning, elegant, and frighteningly charming. When she walked into a room, she didn't just enter, she occupied it. I tried to welcome her with everything I had. I gave her my jewelry on her wedding day. Told her she was the daughter I never had. She kissed my cheek and called me mom, like it meant something. It didn't. At first, I didn't see it. But one evening, maybe 3 months after the wedding, I noticed her looking around the house in a strange way. Not lovingly, calculatingly. Measuring walls with her eyes. Tracking how many antique vases, paintings, valuable things we owned. I ignored it. I waved it off. Mothers do that. We excuse what we shouldn't. Looking back now, that was the first warning. And I ignored it. Andrew wasn't always distant. He used to kiss my forehead every morning before work. But after Rebecca came into his life, things shifted. Little by little, like erosion. He defended her even when she was clearly wrong. He shut me down every time I asked about finances. Calls got shorter. Visits got shorter. One night I overheard them arguing upstairs. That house is dead money. Your father is gone. She won't be around forever. You need to think ahead. She's still my mother. And I'm your wife. Silence followed. The kind that breaks you more than words. I didn't confront them. I just sat in the kitchen, staring at the old dining table where Andrew used to do his homework. Every inch of that room held memories, and I felt them slipping like sand through my fingers. Robert left a will. Andrew never asked what was in it. Not until Rebecca came along. Then suddenly he was curious. When my attorney read it out loud, I saw Rebecca's face freeze. The house was left entirely to me until my passing. Only then would it go to Andrew. She excused herself, breathing hard. 7 minutes. Long enough for me to realize how dangerous this woman was. That's when the war began. Without a single gunshot. Rebecca's tactics were subtle. She said things like, "You'd be more comfortable in a condo near other seniors. This house must be hard to maintain at your age. Don't you want to live somewhere smaller?" She pretended to care. But her eyes gave her away. I stood my ground. The house was mine. The memories were mine. I would leave only when I decided. But the moment I refused, the attacks turned invisible. Andrew visited less. My birthday was too busy this year. Holidays were rescheduled. Loneliness became my shadow. Then one morning, I woke up and found a thick envelope on the kitchen table. Inside, a property sale agreement. The house, my house, had been sold. Signed by Andrew and Rebecca. And a forged copy of mine. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. I dropped the papers. I called Andrew. No answer. I called Rebecca. She declined. I sat on the floor, clutching nothing but myself. When they arrived that evening, they didn't apologize. Andrew avoided my eyes. Rebecca spoke for both of them. Mom, this is better. You'll thank us later. Nori mors. Nos jam. They told me I had 6 weeks to leave. I didn't cry. I didn't give them that satisfaction. I nodded quietly. Once they left, I locked myself in my room and wept like a child. I thought that was the worst day of my life. I didn't know something far bigger, far darker, was hidden beneath the floorboards. 2 days before I was supposed to move out, I sat in the living room one last time. I turned off all the lights, let the moon fill the room, and listened to the creaks of the house as if it were saying goodbye. Then I heard it, a hollow sound under my feet. Not the usual wood settling. A thud. Hollow. Metallic. Curiosity overtook grief. I grabbed a flashlight, knelt, and knocked on the boards. Hollow. I ran to the shed, grabbed a crowbar, and started prying them open. My hands trembled with age, and tears blurred my vision. But finally, the board lifted. Beneath it, covered in dust and wrapped in old fabric, was a steel lockbox. I stared at it, frozen. My heart raced. Why would my husband hide a lockbox under the living room floor? It was heavy. Not for photographs or letters. There was a combination lock. I had no idea what the numbers could be. I tried our anniversary. Nothing. I tried Andrew's birthday. Nothing. Then a memory flickered. The night before Robert died, he had held my hand. Whatever happens, the answer is always the number of days we loved each other. I calculated. 45 years. 16,425 days. I typed it in. The lock clicked. I lifted the lid. And what I saw inside made my breath stop completely. I lifted the lid slowly, my hands trembling. And inside stacks of yellowed envelopes, old deeds, and letters tied with faded ribbons. My breath caught. This wasn't ordinary paperwork. This was my husband's secret, a hidden inheritance, meticulously kept from everyone, even Andrew. I pulled out the first envelope. The handwriting was unmistakably Robert's, precise and deliberate. He had written to someone I didn't recognize, Lawrence Drake. The letters detailed property in the city, assets Robert had transferred into a trust, assets Andrew could not access until he proved himself responsible. And then my eyes widened. One name jumped out. My son. There were stipulations, strict ones, for him to inherit anything. Rebecca, of course, knew nothing of this. She had pushed the house sale, thinking it would give her everything. She didn't know I still had the key, my memory, my knowledge, and now the lockbox itself. I spent the night going through the contents, my mind spinning. Receipts for cash, property titles, and a letter marked urgent, to be opened only by Margaret. I hesitated, but finally unfolded it was from Robert, dated a week before his passing. His words shook me to my core. Maggie, if anything happens to me, know that Andrew cannot be trusted with everything I leave behind. He loves Rebecca more than he loves what is right. Protect our legacy. Hide it until he proves he can be responsible. The combination to the lockbox is a test, and a safeguard. Do not trust anyone but yourself. I sank to the floor, clutching the lockbox to my chest. All those late-night arguments, all those suspicious glances, it was all part of a bigger picture. Rebecca had manipulated Andrew, and I had been blind, trusting my son completely. But in that moment, something inside me shifted. I wasn't going to be powerless anymore. I would protect what was mine, and what Robert had intended me to protect. The next morning, I went to Eleanor Pierce, Robert's attorney. She had always been discreet, loyal to Robert's wishes. I placed the lockbox on her desk, my hands steady despite the storm inside me. Margaret, do you realize what this contains? She asked quietly. Yes, I replied. And I need to protect it. I need to ensure Rebecca and Andrew can't get their hands on it. Eleanor nodded, almost relieved that I had discovered it first. She explained the trust's strict conditions. Andrew could not access certain properties until he proved responsible. Rebecca had no legal standing at all. But the house sale? She frowned. If they suspect the lockbox exists, things could get ugly very fast. I swallowed hard. Ugly wasn't the right word. Dangerous was more accurate. Back at the house, I had to play the part of the defeated mother. Rebecca and Andrew believed they had won. They didn't know I had the lockbox, the tin, or the hidden treasures still undiscovered under the floorboards. That night, I couldn't sleep. I retraced every step in the house, examining corners, closets, the attic, and finally the kitchen. And then I found it, a small, almost invisible seam in the floor. Another panel. My heart raced as I pried it open. Inside was a small metal tin, dusty and rusted. I opened it to find stacks of old bonds, rare coins, and handwritten ledgers of property purchases decades old. Property I had no idea existed. Property that could unravel everything Rebecca had tried to take. And then footsteps. Heavy. Deliberate. Coming from the hallway. I wasn't alone. And I realized, in that instant, that the confrontation I had feared for months was finally coming. Only this time, I wasn't going to be a victim. I carefully placed the tin back under the floorboards, my hands steady now, my mind sharp. Every creak of the old house felt like it was warning me. I had discovered secrets they didn't even know existed, and that gave me power, but also made me a target. Andrew arrived home that afternoon. I was in the living room, pretending to pack a few belongings into boxes. He didn't notice the lockbox or the tin. He didn't know I had already seen everything. The deeds, the letters, the hidden assets. "Mom, I thought you'd be gone by now," he said, his voice tight, a mix of guilt and defensiveness. "Yes, I will," I replied softly. "Just taking a few things I can't part with yet." Rebecca appeared in the doorway, flawless as always, her smile carefully neutral. "I hope you're not holding up the movers," she said sweetly. But her eyes flickered nervously toward the floorboards. She knew something had changed. I smiled, almost gently. Of course. I wouldn't dream of delaying anyone. Inside, my mind raced. I needed proof. Proof that Rebecca had manipulated Andrew and forged my signature. I couldn't act recklessly. I had to turn the situation in my favor, and carefully. That night, I called Eleanor Pierce. "We need to document everything," I said, firm. "Every letter, every signed paper, every suspicious transaction. I want a full record before I act." Eleanor agreed. "Be careful, Margaret. If they suspect you know everything, they may act quickly. Patience is your strongest weapon." Patience. That became my mantra. For days, I played the part of the defeated elderly mother. I let Rebecca direct Andrew, schedule movers, and act as if she had control. They underestimated me completely. That gave me the advantage I needed. Then came the discovery that would change everything again. While inspecting the hallway, I found a hidden safe behind a painting. Small, metal, and cleverly disguised. Locked. The combination? Unknown. But the safe confirmed my suspicion. The house held more secrets, some of which could destroy lives if revealed. I spent hours retracing Robert's steps, thinking about everything he had said, every delivery, every cryptic comment. He had always prepared for the possibility of betrayal, and now I understood why. That night, I decided to test Andrew. Not aggressively, but subtly. I needed to see how far he had allowed himself to be manipulated. "Andrew," I said, sitting across from him at the kitchen table. "Do you know anything about the lockbox your father left under the floorboards?" His eyes widened, but he quickly masked it. "Lockbox? Mom, I don't know what you mean." I leaned forward, calm. "Really? Because I found it. And another tin. Coins, documents. Assets your father never wanted you to touch until the right time." He swallowed hard. "Mom, we thought." I cut him off gently. "You thought what? That you could take what you wanted without consequences." Andrew's face went pale. He was caught between fear and guilt. Rebecca appeared then, as if summoned, her smile forced. "Mom, you should leave all this to the professionals," she said, but her eyes betrayed panic. I realized then that I had more power than I thought. They had been overconfident, believing they could manipulate both me and Andrew. But now the truth, the lockbox, the tin, and the hidden safe, was in my hands. Then it happened. A soft click from the kitchen. My heart jumped. Someone else was inside the house. I crept toward the sound. There, hidden among cleaning supplies, was a small stack of papers I hadn't noticed before. Receipts, letters, and even a threatening note. Rebecca had left evidence. Evidence of her plotting, manipulation, and forgery. And she didn't know I would find it. I picked up the papers, feeling a surge of vindication. The game was no longer in their hands. Now it was mine. But just as I started planning my next move, a voice froze me in place. Soft, cold, and unmistakable. "You really think you can stop us, Mom?" I froze. Rebecca was standing there, her usual calm replaced by something darker. Something dangerous. And in that moment, I realized the battle wasn't just legal anymore. It was personal. And it was only just beginning. The house was quiet when I took a deep breath, but the silence didn't comfort me. It was the kind of silence that presses in, making you hyper-aware of every creak, every shadow. I knew Rebecca's warning voice wasn't empty. She had realized I knew too much, and desperate people are dangerous. That evening, I found Andrew sitting at the kitchen table, staring blankly at his hands. He hadn't looked at me since he came home. Fear weighed on him like a heavy coat. "Mom, you need to leave. Today," he said quietly, his voice barely audible. I shook my head slowly. "I'm already involved, Andrew. The moment you chose this path, you dragged me into it. Whether I knew it or not." He swallowed hard. "You don't understand. Things went too far. Rebecca didn't mean for it to get this big. But now someone else wants the house." I followed his gaze to the window. Outside, a black car waited, tinted windows, engine running. Watching. Rebecca entered then, her composure finally cracking. Her smile was gone. Her eyes darted nervously between Andrew and me. "Mom, you're overreacting," she said, voice forced too high. I held up the lockbox and the tin, keeping my tone calm. "I'm doing exactly what your husband intended. You've been caught trying to cheat us. Legally, financially, morally. You had your chance." Her face twisted. Andrew looked down, ashamed. She tried to speak, but I cut her off. "This house, these assets, they were never yours to sell. You tried to manipulate, deceive, and take what didn't belong to you. But now justice follows the law." Her shoulders slumped. She realized her game was over. But then the front door clicked. 2 men stepped inside, tall, silent, sharply dressed. Enforcers. One nodded toward me. "She's the holdup." I didn't flinch. I looked straight at them. "You won't get this house. It was never yours to sell." Rebecca's face turned pale, fear overtaking her carefully crafted confidence. "Margaret, don't. I've already contacted my lawyer." I lied, holding up the lockbox. "If anything happens to me, copies of every document go to the authorities." The men exchanged a look and walked out silently. The threat wasn't gone, just delayed. Rebecca collapsed into a chair, her mask of control shattered. Andrew remained frozen, caught between guilt and relief. I finally spoke, slow and deliberate. "You both have one chance. One. To fix this. Not for me, not for the house, but for yourselves. If you don't, I will." I walked out before either of them could respond, standing on the driveway in the cold wind. For the first time since Robert's death, I wasn't grieving. I was fighting. And deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. People who almost lose everything don't give up easily. And people who almost get caught, they get desperate. That night, I reviewed every document, every envelope, every piece of evidence in the lockbox. I discovered deeds to properties Andrew didn't know existed, investments that Rebecca could never touch, and letters from Robert giving me exact instructions on how to protect the legacy until Andrew proved responsible. I realized then that I had more power than I ever imagined. Legal power, financial power, and knowledge. And with that, I would protect myself and Robert's wishes. I didn't sleep that night. I paced the rooms, going over every corner of the house, every hidden space, imagining all the ways Rebecca might try to strike back. And then I found another panel in the floor, a small seam almost invisible. I pried it open and discovered a metal tin filled with old bonds, rare coins, and ledgers detailing decades of property transactions. As I examined them, I heard soft footsteps behind me. My pulse spiked. Someone was moving inside the house. I turned slowly, and there she was. Rebecca. But this time, there was something different. Desperation. Panic. She knew she had been discovered completely, and she had nowhere left to hide. "You think you can win?" she whispered, voice shaking. You have no idea what you're up against. I smiled gently, almost pityingly. I know exactly what I'm up against. And now so do you. Her hands trembled as she reached for her phone. I stepped closer, calm but unyielding. This is your last chance, Rebecca, I said softly. Everything you've done is documented. Every lie, every forgery, every move. One more step, and everything you've worked for disappears. She froze, the weight of my words sinking in. Andrew didn't move. I knew he understood now. He had seen the truth, and he couldn't protect her anymore. I felt a strange sense of satisfaction. Not revenge, not anger, but clarity, strength. The knowledge that I had survived every betrayal, every manipulation, and had come out standing. The battle wasn't over, but the balance had shifted. I was no longer the victim. I was the guardian of everything my husband had trusted me to protect. And in that moment, I understood something vital. Power isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, patient, and when the time comes, unstoppable. I knew the final confrontation had to be precise. Every move counted. I couldn't let fear dictate my actions, only clarity, patience, and the truth. The next morning, I waited until Andrew left for work. Rebecca was alone in the house, pacing like a caged animal. I followed her quietly, not to intimidate, but to observe. Every twitch, every glance at the doors and windows, betrayed the panic she tried to hide behind her calm facade. "Mom," she began, voice shaking as soon as she saw me. I didn't mean." "You didn't mean to betray your family?" I asked softly. "You didn't mean to manipulate Andrew, forge my signature, sell the house, or threaten us?" Her eyes darted toward the floorboards, the lockbox, the tin. She knew I had everything. I just wanted security. "I thought I could fix things before you found out," she admitted, almost whispering. "You thought wrong," I said, calm but firm. "And now you have no leverage. Everything you tried to hide is documented. Every step, every letter, every deception, proof exists. And the authorities will see it if I have to act." Her hands trembled. She swallowed hard. "Please don't ruin us." "Andrew, he didn't. He was misled," I interrupted. "But he understands now. And he will do the right thing. You have no protection left." Rebecca sank into a chair, finally defeated. I felt no joy, no anger. Only a quiet relief. The danger had passed. For now. I went to the living room and lifted the lockbox, the tin, and the folders of documents. Andrew returned that evening, looking anxious but resolute. He met my eyes, and for the first time in months, I saw remorse. "Mom," he said, voice low. I understand everything now. I let her manipulate me. I should have trusted you." I nodded. "It's too late to undo the past, Andrew. But it's not too late to do the right thing from here. Follow Robert's instructions. Respect the trust. Protect the legacy. And stay honest." He swallowed hard. "I will." The house felt different then, not haunted by fear, not tense with secrecy, but steady. Solid. Every corner I had feared was compromised now felt secure. Every hidden space, every secret document, every inheritance detail was safe. Rebecca finally stood. "I can leave," she whispered. "I understand. I'll go." "Yes," I said firmly. "And don't return without Andrew's presence. This isn't negotiation. It's justice." She left, the front door clicking shut behind her. I stood in the hallway, feeling the weight of every moment. The betrayal, the fear, the suspense. Lift just slightly. I finally sat in the living room, surrounded by the objects I had fought to protect. The lockbox, the tin, the folders. All reminders of my husband's foresight and my resilience. I realized then that I had gained something far more valuable than property or money. Clarity, strength, independence, and the knowledge that even in the face of family betrayal, patience, courage, and truth can prevail. Andrew came to sit beside me quietly. No words needed. Together, we made a plan to secure the remaining properties, transfer what was necessary, and honor Robert's wishes. And I knew, finally, that I could breathe. Peace wasn't just about surviving. It was about standing tall, knowing you did what was right. And finally, that was mine. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone you love. And don't forget to subscribe. You never know whose day you might change.